Welcome to the Sanborn Regional School District Budget Committee meeting for October 23rd, 2025. Let's begin with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And we have Mika absent tonight and Terry as well. So everyone else is here. We will just go ahead and table the minutes again from our past meetings until have a chance to look those over. And again, Mika's not here, so there'll be no school board update. I did watch the video of the school board meeting, so I'll mention a few things later. I have a few handouts. As usual, being a teacher, no day is complete without handouts. So first I want to thank Christine DeRoches and Superintendent for getting the documents to us so quickly. I really appreciate that. And also want to remind everyone that the school board will open an online superintendent summary to receive input from the community starting on Monday, next Monday, the 27th. And it closes, I believe, the Friday of that week, the 31st, superintendent survey. So we encourage everyone to go to the SAU website and go ahead and participate in that survey. So tonight, first, I just want to mention that I handed out a stapled handout, which has the RSA for our budget committee, and it mentions duties and authority of the budget committee. And I want to thank Dr. Doggett for providing the RSA. That's just something for you to look over. Enrollment trends handout is this colorful chart right here. If you can find that one. And just before we start looking at the enrollment data, I did some 30,000 foot level research, and our current operating budget for everyone is $40,322,601 for this year. So that's $40,300,000 roughly. Inflation is forecast for next year at 3%. And our projected enrollment change for next year, according to the charts we received, is a decrease of 4.79%. So the enrollment change is decreasing faster than inflation's rising. Did everyone hear what I just said?
Yep.
Okay. So there would be a net change in our budget of negative 1.79%, just going on those variables alone. But of course, line items are not perfectly smooth functions. They're step functions. You can't hire 11/12 of a bus driver if one of the families moves out of town. So we do have these fixed costs that we have to bear, even though we may have declined in enrollment. Also, I noticed we're spending $2,000 more than the state's average spending per pupil. And I was happy to notice at the October 1st board meeting that they had a large unexpended end balance. And it'll be returning over $2 million back to the taxpayers. Now, the bad news is the health plan risk pooler we use, School Care, just gave us a sudden premium increase of $650,000. It hit all of the New Hampshire school districts that participate, not just our district. And I might rant for a moment. These pooled risk organizations that provide healthcare plans, we had 4 of them, and now officially only 1 is surviving. School Care is now in trouble or requiring additional premiums. Health Trust was having difficulties, and NHIT, New Hampshire Interlocal Trust, I believe is what that stands for, has gone bankrupt. And only Primex, that insurance offer, it's not insurance, it's a pooled risk organization, is still in operation, seems to be okay. I just want to say, I'm just so tired of these nonprofit groups pretending to be amateur insurance companies. They really have zero knowledge of the insurance business. They're not actuaries. They hire or they recruit volunteers for the boards to serve on them. They had a social studies teacher at Health Trust who's probably not moonlighting as an actuary. Actuarial science is extremely quantitative and demanding field, and all the commercial insurance companies hoover up every one of the graduates in those fields to work for them. So the nonprofits, I think that's a very anti-capitalist term anyway. We should actually consider what the Rye Select Board is considering, which is just providing funds to their employees to go into the commercial insurance market and get health insurance policies done there. Because we're just going to get these boomerangs going on because people running these nonprofits really are not qualified or professional actuaries, and they don't know how to set the rates. You can't try to cut corners in these industries. They're very, very quantitative and demanding. And I think that the private insurance companies, instead of calling themselves nonprofits, should call themselves non-losses. End of rant. All right. So I just want to say we might consider going to the private sector for our insurance policies. So looking at the first chart, which has the trends, which we're all well aware of for enrollment levels. And the shaded in row is the current year, 2025. You can find that on the chart. The one right below that is for 2026 estimate. I think there might be a mistake for, if you look under 9 to 12, grades 9 to 12 column, right there for 2026, it says 387 students. You see where it says 387 students for 2026? When I added together the actual numbers to the right for 9, 10, 11, 12, it comes out to be 381. So I'm just saying, I'm not sure if all the numbers are correct, but I noticed that discrepancy. And those numbers do add up to 1093 if you change 387 to 381. Anyway, that is a trend. We all know about it. And that shows us what the decrease is going to be for next year. And before we get into the other enrollment numbers, does anybody have questions or a comment about that?
Can I comment on the shortfall for the health insurance?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go for it.
What percentage increase would this $650,000+ be over what we originally estimated it to be?
Well, they're not including that in this year's increase.
So it'd be against last year.
It was charged against last year.
So what's the increase then over last year's?
Last year, they increased us 15%. And this year, they're telling us at least 20. So we went with 22.5 because they said approximately. We don't have the rates
Okay.
yet. They don't come out until November. So,
But they plan an increase.
yes,
Yes.
yeah. But that assessment is not an increase because that was for last year's,
Right.
Health bills and things like that. Because they don't want to put that assessment on as an increase because people that are new to the health insurance are not the ones that caused the
Gotcha.
assessment from last year.
Gotcha.
And they got it in just before the window closed for the unexpended balance to be
For us, at least.
right for us. Yes. So before we look at the enrollment numbers, I just wanted to show you some of my back of the envelope numbers that I found for the vacancy rates. If you have the stapled handout that I provided, it has the RSA on the front. It's the one with the red, that one, yep. So it looks like this. And on page 2, I looked up school building vacancy rates and just kind of did a few calculations, which Dan Doyle would probably correct me on tonight if he were here. But anyway, I looked at what the state of New Hampshire requires for square footage per student for different grades. And I looked up our enrollment numbers for 2026. So if you look at where it says grades 9 to 12 students, we'll have 381, plus the middle school students in the high school comes out to 609 times the gross square footage recommended equals 113,883 square feet is optimal for that size of cohorts for those grades. And the high school building can accommodate many more students than that. So currently the high school has excess capacity of about 47% from the numbers I looked at today. So we have an excess capacity issue. For Bakey School, I did the same calculation. I multiplied the number of students projected for next year times the square footage recommended by the administrative rules, and it came out to 37,696 square feet. And Bakey School is 58,785 square feet. So the excess capacity there is about 36%. And then finally, for Memorial School, the excess capacity is only 8%. So that looks okay. I know that if Terry were here tonight, Dr. Beckett, she would mention that she's concerned about the building we're leasing for SAU offices over in the Carriagetown Plaza, and would wonder if we were planning to perhaps move those offices back to the high school, given the excess capacity. So that's something that we could maybe discuss during future meetings. On the back of this page, I have the chart from the Department of Education's administrative rules for square footage. And it varies by class, by the size of the cohort, and by the grade level.
Did you include the special education student?
I did not. That you add square footage for each special ed student.
Which would be for the high school roughly, and the high school, middle school would be roughly 130 students times 50 foot per student.
Okay,
And I think it's also noteworthy that these numbers are drawn for the purpose of determining the maximum building size eligible for building aid.
right.
So this is the maximum amount that the state would pay if we were building a facility
Mhm.
for
Yep.
that. And the high school here had some areas that were designed for a much larger school to be potentially here. Say the library is larger than it would probably be. We have a cafeteria that's larger than it's possibly be. That square footage here in the building would include the full size of and a 10,000 square foot gymnasium that can hold something around 800 or 900 people for a game.
Right.
So I think some of that is reflected by a particular school building. May feel a little bigger than that.
Sure.
Wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I was just ballparking it. I knew there were additional modifications to the numbers that we could make. But when I noticed that it was about half of the high school had excess capacity, and that was something I had discussed with Dan earlier, it seemed like the numbers perhaps were reflective of the situation. So that's what I have for square footage, and on the next handout, students to staff ratios. And that is inside of the one with this first page. You can find that one. I looked up some of the usual ratios of students to principal, students to school counselor, and students to educator for different organizations to provide information. And the AFL-CIO, which has a website for administrators, said that the current average, at least for 2023, was 252 students per administrator. And these numbers are just, again, maybe inaccurate because I don't have the entire list of our personnel, but it looks like we have one principal at Bakey. We have a principal and an assistant principal at Memorial right
We also have
now.
an assistant principal at Bakey.
Oh, we do? Okay. I was using the directory in Google and searching for administrator titles to find out.
Mhm.
It's not always available at the websites for the schools. For the middle school, we have one assistant principal, and for the high school, we have two.
We have a high school, middle school principal that covers both buildings.
Okay,
Ally Trimper covers mostly, excuse me, grades 6 and 7. They've juggled it around a little bit, so I'm not entirely sure. But she's works primarily with the middle school students, 3 assistant principals that cover the high school and middle school population. That's Sean Walker, Scott Maxwell, and Josh White. Nicole O'Brien has left the district.
oh, she has, okay.
Mhm.
Well, you could probably just send me an email with the updated information. That would be awesome.
Sure.
Students to school counselor ratio, this is from the American School Counselor Association. They indicate or they recommend a ratio of 250 students to counselor, to one counselor, more or less. Depends on the school, of course, but I noticed, again, these are what I could find on the website, but for Bakey, we have 248 and 2 school counselors for Bakey. Currently, Memorial has 236 students and 1 guidance counselor, and the middle school has 1 school counselor and 228 students. And the high school, I noticed from the enrollment numbers that I just received, they have 3 school counselors for 381 students. So that's just something I wanted to provide to the committee. The students to educator ratio, this is from the RSAs, the education administrative rules indicate kindergarten to grade 2, 25 students or fewer per educator, provided each school shall strive to achieve the class size of 20 students or fewer. Grades 3 to 5, 30 students per educator, provided each school shall strive to achieve class size of 25 students or fewer. And middle and high school, 30 students or fewer per educator. So those are the recommended ratios according to the RSAs. And when we're looking at adjusting staff and discussing that, each staff member costs approximately $100,000 if you look at salary plus wages. And if you can find the last handout for tonight, which is the longer one with student counts for budget committee, it looks like this. We just received this one yesterday, I believe. And I'm probably going to sit with Christine and go over these numbers just to understand them better. But I just noticed that for 2026, 27, the projected average class sizes do not hit any of the numbers the RSAs recommend. Now, there could be reasons for that, but I'm just saying none of the class sizes meets 20, 25, or 30. And we can look these over tonight and have questions about some of the numbers, but we're going to review them again later. I did have a question for Christine or for the superintendent. On the 3rd page, it says high school student sections average size. It doesn't indicate if that's for the current year or for the coming year. So that's something I should have asked Christine about.
This year.
That's for this year?
It's very hard to predict what kids are going to take for the fall.
Okay, so that's this year's numbers. And another question I have about these numbers is how many paras are in each classroom? That might be helpful to know, because I know that And I also had a question about paraprofessionals versus paraeducators. Are those distinct classifications of employees, or are those basically the same services? Paraprofessionals versus paraeducators. I noticed they're described differently in the directory.
I think that's just a matter of semantics.
You think, okay, just wanted to
Yeah.
make sure it
I don't
wasn't
know where that, I
a
don't know where
difference
you're-
in,
to what you are referring, so it's hard to answer
oh,
that.
okay,
But
well, when
the assumption is they're the same.
when I was searching the directory of employees for different employee classifications, I put para in and it had para educators and paraprofessionals.
Mhm.
They each had their own labels. So I wasn't sure if that was the same job description or not. I'm just curious about
Highly
that.
likely they're,
Okay,
I think they're the same. I think at one point it changed. It's probably just a matter of timing. Because I think
Okay.
they used to be referred to as paraeducators, and I believe it's now paraprofessional.
okay, but that's good to know. Thank you so much. So I'd like to find out how many paras are in each classroom. And looking over the numbers for kindergarten, first grade, I'm just wondering in 2026, 27, is there any expectation that we will reduce the 5 kindergarten classes to 4? Or is that something you're still considering?
we are planning on what we're calling Budget Palooza next Monday and Tuesday.
Okay.
Monday and Wednesday, whatever days it is.
Yeah.
Because the Tuesday got
Bumped.
interrupted by the superintendent search committee meeting. So
that's
we are
right.
going to sit down and really hash out the positions that we may be recommending for trimming as of the November 5th presentation.
So these are just placeholder numbers right now,
Yeah.
and we could get new families moving in, of course, as well, but
Yep.
I just wanted to know if these were just,
The projections are based on the enrollment numbers that you saw already.
Right.
So
I see.
in kindergarten and pre-K and notoriously difficult to predict.
sure, I
Um,
understand. Yeah,
The second grade numbers, let's say you've got a cohort of kids in first grade, we've been averaging retaining. Over the last couple of years, we've been retaining about 100. We're actually picking up kids at first grade and almost dead level for second grade. So we have a rough idea of how many kids we're gonna have
okay,
in those guidelines. So, and of course, just simply cutting an educator can significantly jump the number of kids in each class, depending on, as we get, smaller numbers, you add that teacher. And you could also run into a situation where you could end up really high if you don't predict that number right, because it's very, very hard to predict how many
Right.
kids you're going to have in each particular grade from year to year.
okay, so those questions I'll just hold for now. I did have questions about kindergarten, first, second, not second grade, third grade, what's gonna happen for 26, 27, fourth grade, fifth grade, assignments. For the middle school, now correct me if I'm mistaken, but for ELA, for English.
Yep.
2026, 27. So Hadwin has 59 students, so that's 5 class treatments, 5 class sections.
All of these are 4.
Oh, 4, okay.
For the middle school, they're teaching 4 sections,
Okay, that makes sense.
4 subjects, 4 sections. They just
I
rotate.
thought they had 5 sections as a full
They
load.
teach something else or they have a duty
I
period.
need to work here. I got 5 sections.
No, that's okay.
That's all right. Okay, so,
Schedules are a massive jigsaw puzzle. Which is
Right.
getting middle and high school.
right, so I'll be looking these over again, but the RSA's say 30 per class, so it still seems like the numbers are very small numbers. Class sizes. And then the special ed totals, I believe those are just as the IEPs require, so that's under specialized instruction.
Mhm. Yep.
And the mandate is how the IEPs will roll out. If there's a service needed, then,
Yeah, and it can also be a scheduling piece where you have an academic support period, let's say, where that center needs to be open or would ideally be open every period of the day.
right,
And
okay,
if students have the ability to access that area as needed and you need a staff member in that area, they may have a very small number of students, but they need to be available to the kids.
Sure,
And you
right.
can't always also mix students with disabilities, learning disabilities of some kind, and regular ed students, if you will, in those rooms. It's not allowed to do that, as I understand it.
It's not practical. Okay.
It's not practical. It can be illegal.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean, nobody's getting arrested, but it would violate the other students' IEPs and so forth.
So for high school, Algebra 2, current numbers, 91 students, 4 sections. If this had been adjusted to 3 sections, the average class size would only be 30.3. Which seems to me to be within the standard deviation allowed by the RSAs. I'm just wondering why the sections are retained at 4 instead of 3, for example, this year for Algebra 2.
I think that
Why these decisions are being made for these class sections.
a variety, and there's several factors that would play into that. Schedule. When you go to 3 sections of a course, it makes it more difficult for students to schedule that course. So it's that those 3 sections are going to be up against, say, band, or they're going to be up against, with Algebra 2, a typical junior class. It might run up against a class, junior
Okay.
English that they're trying to get. So the fewer sections you have, it creates more scheduling conflicts and difficulty. The second piece of that is you'd be putting 30 students in a high school Algebra 2 class, which would, in my opinion, have a significant impact on student learning. It's obviously better to have us. I'd love to have 15 kids in that class from an educational only standpoint. So
Because of the difficulty of the material, so.
yeah, and if you want to have, if the teacher wants to have contact with each of the kids in a 50-minute period, that's, you're getting down to a minute or so at the most where they would be able to sort of one-on-one work with kids. So there's a balance of trying to make your class sizes be reasonable so you're not, have 5 kids in a class across the board. That'd be awesome, right? But it'd be expensive as heck. So that's the other side of it. So all of these are looking to balance the needs of that, versus what's available for teaching staff and lessening the number of conflicts you have across the schedule.
Sure. And on the next page, again, the pages are numbered. I'm sorry about that. Where it says music, English, science. So for forensic science, 20 students total this year. And it says includes lab, so maximum 24.
Mhm.
So why couldn't, again, is this because of scheduling? Why couldn't it just have been one section with 20 students?
Well, there's another factor that plays in this. So when you're creating the schedule, you are looking to put you've got staff as well. So you may have an extra staff person where you can break this out. You've got a high interest elective here for juniors and seniors. And it's not always practical to just take those 20, let's say you had 20 kids signed up and split them. You could have 8 kids that now can't take the class that they. So you might create an extra section for that reason. Or over the summer, we might have had 25 or 26 kids signed up for that class. And then as course changes happen in the fall, as the kids come in and their interests change and they want to do an internship and they want to do an ELO and all so forth, the numbers may drop or rise depending on as the kids reschedule in the fall. So what may start as, 2 sections of 13 for 26 and you end up, it jumbles. That's probably a bad example. That math is kind of off, but
No, I
it can
understand.
jumble around as you're going in. So it's not as easy as that. It doesn't always work as cleanly as you would like. Like I liken a high school schedule to almost like a Jenga game that never kind of works out. It's really, and as soon as you kind of pull one little piece out, sometimes other things fall apart.
All right.
Until you've kind of done a high school schedule, you don't realize that. And so you end up with those kinds of situations.
And another question I have is, when I teach honors classes, for example, it might not fill, I may have only 4 or 5 students that enroll.
Mhm.
So instead of teaching us an honors section, I'll do an honors contract with the students. Is that something we do here? Is that allowed, generally, or?
It is not something
Take
I'm
diplomas?
familiar with being done at the high school. It is something that I have seen done in other schools I've worked at. It is, and I think it's something that we may need to consider as we continue to get.
Right,
I believe there are some kids that are taking, I'm just going off memory here, a small number of kids that are taking higher level credits in their courses. It can create a little bit of a slippery slope in some other areas as well. But it's possible. I know it's done. It's not something I don't believe that we typically do.
so would that conserve resources um, for taxpayers? I mean, if we had a teacher have 2 honor students with contracts, would that be considered like part of a load, so it would not be as expensive?
I think I would flip it over. I would say if you had 2 students, let's say in, and I'm trying to pick a class that has a relatively small number of students in it. So, financial skills,
English,
and just
yeah.
noticing it because it's the first one with a lower number.
Yeah,
You're not going to, in an ideal world, you'd have a different section for those 5 kids that take an honor class if you choose to do this.
Right.
Okay. But it would be kind of impractical. So now you have a class of 9 and a class of 5 where you might do it in something like that. And I believe I think the honors classes are mixed in here, like biology definitely has an honors option,
I noticed there were
Um,
some mixed together, yeah.
but it's not broken out that way in these numbers. So,
Like American history indicates their APs included at the bottom.
AP US history, yeah.
American
yeah, I'm not sure
history.
why that's noted that way. I'd have to look at that. So you could do that. Yeah, 117 for American history is about most of the junior class. So it looks like they may have included those kids. I don't know. I don't know that answer off the top of my head. But you can do that. It creates some, kind of runs both ways. It also can, if you're always integrating your honors kids on a contract basis in your classes, there can be a feeling, and I'm going back 15, 20 years when I was working at Timberlane when they did this, there can be a feeling that the honors kids are not getting what you would consider a full honors experience when you do that. So like a lot of other things, there's a lot of balancing and decisions that you have to make to try to make this all work and come together.
Well, you can make it extremely painful for them, even though they're mixed in with other students, believe me, in terms of rigor. So,
Not sure we're going for
yeah,
but
get on.
challenging.
Right, challenging. That's what I was looking for. So for some of the electives, like psychology is with 12 students, some of these are offered at VLAX. Is there any long-term interest in shifting course sections to VLAX? Because 12 students is not a huge number of students for that section.
Interest?
Yeah, is there any,
That's not my decision to make.
is there a plan in place to shift some of the low enrollment sections to VLAX? Or at least periodically do that? Because 12 students is not a lot of students for,
I don't think it's
That's
something that
actually-
has been discussed, but I believe that if you were to, if we had the guidance counselors look at, the school counselors look at all of these, you wouldn't see kids that are taking VLAX courses right now for some things that aren't reflected here. And I can't think of something off the top of my head. Let's say somebody wanted to take AP government and politics.
right?
They might be taking that at VLAX, but it's not showing up here.
Oh, okay, they're not reporting, well, it contributes to their diploma, so I assume you get a record of that. It's taken,
Yeah, we would have a record of it, yeah.
right?
And those kids would be, if you go all the way down to the bottom, the online lab courses are sometimes populated by kids that are doing that. I put credit recovery on there in the notes box, but that would also be
Oh, I
for
see.
students. I'm quite certain some of those kids are taking VLAX classes in the online lab. Say it's fall's 3rd period. They get a 1st period class here, 2nd period class here. They would do the online lab 3rd and take their 4th, 6th in the school. If they have an opening in their schedule, they can do the VLAX class at that time.
Okay. And for welding, for example, the second to the last page, some of these I know are limited by the amount of equipment
Yep.
and stations.
Mhm.
Can we get more information on the maximums for some of those? Like welding, ceramics, woodworking?
I think ceramics, there's room for, I think around, I was gonna say 18, so they're actually, that's a tiny little room.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That one in particular is a pretty small room. And these electives also, it's one of those things that it's very, very helpful to have multiple sections of because it allows kids that have holes in their schedules. And currently we're also another factor, I almost forgot about this, is we're on a 24 credit diploma with a 6-period day.
Right.
And so that makes it significantly, I don't want to say painful,
More
Uh,
difficult.
difficult if the
Yes.
student is not able to schedule in any elective that they may not have taken already during a free period. So this gives kids a chance to also chase an interest, which I would hope is something that we can support for kids. But I can try to find out the match.
In a quick Google search, welding varies, but most are 6 to 8 per class for welding.
Yeah, it's a significant supervision issue with the welding kit.
Right.
Yeah, anything
Um,
like that, you're gonna run into OSHA, you would run
Oh,
into
sure.
OSHA violations.
Yep.
You have to be
And
careful.
they're in little cubicles back there with hoods on and the teacher has to
Mm.
have his thing on. It can be really difficult.
What is trans power tech?
I believe, funny, I wrote that and I wanted to look it up, but I forgot. I think that's auto.
I was gonna say, because I don't see auto in here and I'm.
Yeah, I think that's
Auto?
the fancy term for auto.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there's definitely auto being taught back there and I didn't see it on here. So
Oh, yeah.
it's the only thing that makes any sense to me.
Actually, if I may.
Yeah.
Of course.
First of all, thank you. It's a lot of information. Just a side comment. The very first subject, which is unified arts, somebody needs to double check their math. You have 2 sections, 40 students, so not an average of 21 students.
You on there, Jim?
It's
It's
Third,
third one in.
What school?
high school.
Okay.
Yep. No, it's middle school.
Sorry, that's middle school.
Oh, well, there you go.
Unified arts, art. So
Well, you can blame the, I got a 720 on my SATs, but means I didn't get them all.
Okay. The next question I have is, these are average class sizes.
Mhm.
What are the actuals? Because listening to what you're describing about trying to make the most options for students when you have possibly freshman English,
Mhm.
are we talking, there are 5 sections, 90 students? Is that 4 sections that actually have 20 and 1 section that only has 10? Because all you're giving us is average.
Mhm.
You know, junior English has 5 sections. The average, and all that has been done is to average out the total number of students,
Mhm.
number of offerings.
Yep.
That doesn't tell us whether or not there is any flexibility here for possible reduction in the number of offerings. And my third question is, you have French 1 and French 3. There should be a French 2.
I'm not going to guess at that. I can see a French 1, 3, and 4 in here. I know that they're relatively small numbers of students in that class.
Okay.
So I'm actually seeing a French 1, 3. So I'd have to look at that and see exactly what
Oh, okay.
how they're
On my sheet, there's only French 1 and 3. There
I'm look-
is
I'm looking
Spanish
at,
1 through 4, and it's producing what to me is the logical progression is with foreign languages. Your first year is a large cohort. It dwindles
Yeah.
as you get towards the last one.
yeah, I'm seeing 11, 6, and 2 in French 1, 3, and 4. I think the French 2 kids are potentially integrated in the French 3. I think that may actually be a French 2, 3. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have an intelligent
Right.
answer.
If
I
you
don't have
could
the
find
exact
out.
answer on that. Freshman English, because you asked about that. The section sizes are 23, 20, 13, 19. So you see the variability, which doesn't come because we don't want to level them out. It's not necessarily always possible to level them out and put the kids where they, to make
What fits in their schedule.
all of those equal. It's how it fits in the schedule. The big block tends to be band because it takes a big chunk of kids and it's only, let's say, once a day. And so if you run up against the band period, that can cause others to be smaller in that block. But if you also, then you get later in the year when kids are heading off to SST and so forth, that blocks off some kids there. So you've got to push some other things. And so, like I said, it's every time you do one thing, you're creating 3 other problems in the schedule. So it's really hard. And it's, as we get smaller, those problems become more prevalent.
While we're working on next year's budget bottom line, it behooves us to look at, the potential. I mean, we're looking at a school district that, quite frankly, when you get to 28 and 29, I just don't see the numbers there to warrant the budget.
I don't understand that.
We're looking right at the moment, we have a $40 million budget. It's a little. I'm looking at freshman English. There might be a child that's in a class of 23 and another child that's in a class of 50. That's hardly a consistent educational experience. And it's costing the average taxpayer a small fortune. So this committee's responsibility is to set the budget. And I have a hard time with, having offerings where there's 6 students in a class. We have 2 offerings. We have two periods that it's offered. There's a total of 12 students. There's a max of 10. Makes sense that you go, okay, the first 10 students that sign up for it get it, and 2 students have to choose something else. Same way that everybody's household has to go, okay, we have X number of dollars to spend. Something goes wrong with the car, we have to figure out how we're going to pay the difference. I mean, it's not a bottomless pit of money. We have to look at this very critically.
I mean, yes, I would agree with that. Okay. The budgets have stayed, the bottom line budget for the district has stayed relatively stable over the last couple of years. As we've seen, the numbers have basically dropped in line with the changes in health insurance and other expenses. So that $41 million, I believe, has been relatively stable for the last 4 to 5 years. We at the superintendent's offices, we work on next year's budget, and I spent 14 hours on it today. 12. Okay. We have to look at our things that we kind of have to do. Then we have to look at things we want to do. And then we have to look at, as we balance those two things, what are we giving up? And what is the impact on kids and what is the impact on taxpayers? Like I said earlier, I would love to have small sections in every class. The educator in me would love that. But I don't live in this community, so that's not a, that doesn't necessarily balance for me, but it is also the job I have to create as much of a balance as I can. We are looking and will continue to look for the most appropriate way to allocate largely human resources in ways that allow us to maintain as high a level of education as we can for the kids while balancing, keeping it reasonable. I think that was the word I heard earlier. The expenses that we use to do that education. But there are things that are fighting against us making massive cuts. The couple of $1 million. We're 22.5% for our health insurance bill is a lot of money. And we're contracted to pay that. We don't have an option on that. So those factors are fighting against us. But as we get smaller, we have to, as an organization, look at ways to trim back on our staff. We've already this year had several people who have left the district and we have not replaced those positions. So we're already in that process. Like it's already begun. I can't sit here and say to you, we're gonna have 6, 10, or 40 fewer positions in the budget for next year because we haven't had that discussion yet. Okay, but we are definitely going to have that discussion and look at the impact that we have on kids and the impact we have on taxpayers and balance those two things. Ultimately, however, the budget that we will be bringing to you is our recommendation. And as you were correct last time, I was incorrect. That bottom line budget is set by the budget committee. Okay. And so as those discussions happen, I'll try to give you guys as much information as I can to make it as educated, pun intended, a decision as we can to find the balance between those two. Okay. So there's absolutely no question we're going to be coming back with a budget that has fewer human people positions in it because of the cost. That's the only way to cut the budget. The number for all of Memorial's paper, supplies, all their stuff at Memorial is going to end up being roughly the cost of one teacher. And so I think we can spend a lot of time focused on, well, cheaper. Do they really need $2,000 worth of paper clips? Which is obviously they're not spending $2,000 on paper clips, but something like that, when really the big impact is going to be with it. But those are painful cuts because they're people, and B, those all can have a direct impact on student learning as well. But at the same time, like I'll say it again, just to make sure we're clear, it's a balance between a reasonable amount of money that we spend to provide the best possible education we can between the two things. And then we're working really hard to come to that.
I got a quick one. So for these high school numbers, is this full year or is it by semester? It says sections. This is for the full year, right? For these.
This is what you're seeing is the current semester.
Oh, this is just for the fall semester one?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
But fall and spring semesters would typically be roughly the same.
Just wanted to check.
Yep. We don't have
And-
kids like graduate earlier. And
I'd asked the curriculum director to give us, if there were, say, 4 sections, to give us the smallest section they had going. So we have some idea of what the lowest number is in a given set of sections.
okay.
So if it's 4, what was the lowest class section for that number of sections? Just so we have an idea. And I dreaded handing this guy out because it's kind of a work in progress. But this was something I got early on. It's an updated list of educators and the enrolled students in each of their classes. So this guy is something I need to talk to Christine about. But if you look at page of the other one, under modern media, it's the second to the last page at the bottom. Modern media, 77 students. 4 sections, 19.3. Here you go. 19.3 students per section. Are you with me on this?
Nope.
Okay, I'm on the second to the last page of the original we were just looking at.
Okay.
Modern media, 77 students.
Yep.
4 sections, 19.3 per section.
Mhm.
So the one I just handed out has modern media shown on that first page near the top.
Mhm.
And you have all these little sections for semester 1, 19, 22, 8, 2. So I need to understand what these numbers mean as enrolled students. Are these actual sections that are actually combined during the week where the students are working as a class, but it's not really a section with one student in there? This is something I need to understand because I wanted to see how full individual teachers' courses were.
Mhm.
And for some of these numbers, I'm just not clear on how a section with one student is sustainable. So I know that's not what's going on with this data here, you think?
Yeah, I don't understand. If you look directly below that,
Yeah,
so you see the teacher, and I won't mention who that is.
no,
but
no.
There's a modern media 2 P5 semester 2. Well, actually, that doesn't line up.
I think this just needs more work, that's all.
Yeah, like P2 semester 1 has 2 kids, but it would appear P2 being period 2 that there's probably 21 students in that room at that time. And for period 3, there would be 22 plus 3. I think what's happening here is, and this is what we talked about before with the honors, right? That you've got several students that are taking a second level of the course at the same time in the same room with the same teacher. So you have a modern media.
But they're given a different lesson plan
Sure.
compared
Yeah,
to the others.
yeah, there's a lot of independent work in that particular class.
Okay, so
so
this
those
is
kids
really
that-
not helping me at all, is what you're telling me. This
Like I said,
document
high
is,
school schedules are super complicated.
Yep.
We can look to try to present it a little more clearly across all the sections.
but I would like to know more about, the breakdown of the sections, not just the average numbers. And as soon as you get these spring schedules, information, I'd like to know the sizes of the sections for the spring offerings as well. Because honestly, I usually say, this presents a challenge, we have an issue with class sizes, but I am going to use the word problem. I'm going to say there's a problem staring us in the face. These are inadequately filled class sections. They look like graduate seminars to me. When you have like 10 or 12 students in a class, I think we need to stagger these course offerings more or have the students, again, as Jim offer 2 sections. When they fail, they fail. If students would like to take the course again, or take it later, they should look at VLAX or another option because we cannot pay for these small classes. That's it. I'm just concerned about this. So, I'd like to look at more of the sections and the numbers of students in each section just to get a better idea of what's going on. But these are pretty small numbers. And that's my main concern. And also we wanted to get the number of paras in each class, if that's possible. Working with each class section. I know that's a lot to ask for, but that does help the teachers out a little bit because they have another adult in the room helping out.
I think our pairs are more likely to be working individually with students or with small groups of students in a special ed setting than to be permanently assigned to an individual classroom.
Right.
I think there's only a handful of regular ed paras, most.
Yeah.
They normally don't work in a regular classroom. Okay. But
Yeah,
if they have any working like that, that would be helpful. And we probably can use a complete list of all the administrators in each building. We'd also like a complete list of the guidance counselors if I've made any errors in my presentation tonight. And anything else that you can think of we should ask for
All the staff in the buildings.
in the buildings? Okay.
Can I get a list of all the required classes or subjects? Because I'm looking at, English, freshman, junior, sophomore, and senior. So it seems to be the entire student body needs to take that class. If we could get a breakdown or at least, jotting off of what is needed that every student must take.
I think it's
I
online.
can
isn't
send
it?
you the link. There's a presentations for parents night
Mhm.
where they actually go through the schedule.
Mhm.
It's a PowerPoint slides and it shows you what's required, what's an elective.
Okay,
It's
sweet.
pretty, it's not too bad to go through that. It's pretty good.
Mhm.
So I'll send you the link.
Yeah, and the program of studies can lay that out for you as well,
Okay.
pretty well.
Yeah, because I'm not against, these higher level math classes. If everybody needs to take, intro to pre-calc or something,
Mhm.
then okay, sure, we'll have more of that subject. But, quantitative reasoning, sure, does that need 3 separate sections? Could we cut that down to 2 if there's going to be a specific time slot, either semester 1 or semester 2, to take that particular class? Again, same thing, with the languages, Spanish 4, even as you mentioned, if French 4 only has a handful of students in it, could we only offer that in semester 1 or semester 2? Again, it's the students need their calendars and schedules filled out, but, even in college, this class was only offered semester 2, so you had to work around that. So thinking same thing or similar thing here.
So if I understand it right, you're looking for a more fleshed out breakdown of the teachers, particularly at the high school level. Who's got what and how many kids?
I am, yeah.
Second semester is not really set just yet because you're going to see kids who potentially fail classes in first semester that would fill them out.
Right.
A list of all the teachers in the district and the admins. I'm sorry. I knew there was something else there. I'll send along the program of studies, which includes all the programs. Yep. And looking at how many paras are in particular classrooms, I know that number is very small.
Mhm.
Did I miss anything?
Well, for the AP classes, I definitely want to see the breakdown of if there's one or if there are 2 or 3 sections, usually 2 sections, what the size of each section is. For those,
Well, they be included in all the other courses though?
that would be part of what I asked for, yeah.
Okay.
The AP classes tend to be really small.
You also include the minimum requirements for high school grade. There are
I'm not sure how you mean that.
Didn't hear you.
there are credit requirements that you're required to take each year in high school. There are certain things that are specifically freshman English, a math class.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just so you know, and it won't be terribly reflected in next year's budget. They're called the 306s. That's how they're generally referred to by educators. It's the section of the RSA that's changing. For instance, they're going to go from 4 credits of social studies to 4.5 credits of social studies. They're requiring us to teach a course in logic and rhetoric at some point during the year. That's probably going to be a junior, senior elective course.
Mhm.
So it won't impact next year's budget because the entry class of the class of, jeepers, what are they, 31 or something. Next year's freshman class will have to meet those standards that the legislature have passed just this, or maybe in the state school board just this past year. So that will impact things a little bit on your requirements, but I'll send you the ones that apply to our kids right now.
Right.
I can give you both, but it can confuse things. And it tends to be written 3 years of math, 4 years of English. It doesn't necessarily break down how you get to that.
And that actually it can be that rudimentary.
Yeah.
Because needless to say, if you have to have 4 years of English, you're taking freshman 1 through you're taking freshman English through senior English. That's your core
Yeah.
English class.
Yeah, and it tends to be freshman, sophomore English and electives. Math is more prescribed, like the kids have to take Algebra 1 and they could take a math experience. So there's some other ways to get to the,
And actually, since you brought up the algebra, are we still teaching algebra in 8th grade?
yes,
So is that why?
99% sure that's a yes.
Is that why there's only one section of algebra 1, but 4 sections of algebra 2? Because enough students have.
Well, I don't know that for sure. Okay. So the Algebra 2 could be the schedule jumble that causes the difficulty of scheduling all the kids. It could also be that a decision is being made or has been made to, because of the difficulty of Algebra 2 or math in general is a real struggle for kids. We might make a decision as the royal we, whoever the we is, that we want to include an extra math teacher to keep the sections low to help those kids be successful in math. I don't know exactly how that decision was made. I didn't make it. But I think that's a reasonable answer. That what they're choosing to do is dole out the staff members they had in the periods they have to get those numbers down to help those kids be successful.
Okay, in reading through this, the logical, knowing that they teach algebra, there are 13 children taking algebra 1. There are 91 students taking algebra 2. It doesn't make sense because how can you have 91 students taking algebra 2 if you don't have the same number the previous year taking algebra 1? However, if they are getting the algebra 1 credit as an 8th grader,
Yep.
that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think there's also, and I'm not an expert on the program of studies, but I believe some of those kids are taking a split Algebra 1. So they're taking Algebra 1 over the course of 2 years, as opposed to all the kids just taking it in that single year setting. So I think that advanced topics in algebra, which is one of the last ones in that math list, may be one of those courses. Like I said, I'm no expert on the program of studies at the high school. Living in athletics world for the last 5 years, so.
We'll bring you questions about that at the next meeting.
You go, I can answer those. Yay volleyball.
And on the first page of the original handout here, student counts, the counselor ratios seem low, students to counselor ratios going into the new coming year. So I guess you're going to consider that when you form the new budget, but it seems like as enrollment declines, do we need 3 counselors for the high school?
It's something we look at all those things. We also have to look at the students that we have.
Yeah.
There's a lot of struggling kids right now, and I know that's true across the state. In talking to other superintendents and people I know who work in other schools, these kids are, it's a struggle right now for a lot of kids for a variety of reasons that, aren't there, but our counseling staff is a pretty busy bunch.
Has
So
the
we
no
may,
phone policy been helping out? It sounds like it has been.
what we're hearing,
Of attention in class.
yeah, we're hearing some good results on that. We had pulled the cell phones from kids during class a couple of years ago. They were putting them away, but the increase of, they're not supposed to have them in the halls between classes, and we know some of them are sneaking around there, whatever,
Right.
and that's normal. But we're seeing some nice things happen in the cafeteria with kids talking to one another, and
Playing games.
they're playing games at lunch and
Interacting
around. And the other thing is the probably the more impactful piece has been the filtering software we have on the kids' Chromebooks, and we're busting kids left and right for
Oh, right.
their
Yeah.
gameplay has gone down dramatically, and so they're not spending nearly as much. They're spending a lot of time searching for ways to beat the filter.
Right,
and
sure.
game. But can't really get too mad about that, to be honest. But the system has been nice to keep the kids more focused in class, and we've been able to identify some some nastiness as well that we're dealing with. So, but yeah, that from what I understand, that's been extremely positive. So that's good. And the kids don't mind it. I think they kind of almost welcome it in a way. That's what I'm hearing. Like they're kind of like, it's kind of nice to get this thing away from me all day.
Well, there's a real world out there called skill building they need to find out about. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I did want to know from you, from everyone, if you're interested in a meeting next Thursday, but only if we can get the additional information we just asked for before then. I don't know if you have the time to do that.
That's going to be extremely difficult. We are facing a November 5th deadline to
I
have the budget
understand.
correct. There are
Yes.
1,952 lines in the budget that we have to write.
Right.
I think that's the number that I saw today. Every time Marie sends me another list, there's more of them on there. And so we have to make sure that's correct. And I have some personal business to attend to the end of
Sure.
next week. So I'll be out of town, probably working, but I'll be out of town. And so getting the teachers, paras, administrators, counselors, basically everything but that really sectioned off breakout for the high school is going to be fairly straightforward. That section breakout to get it accurate is going to be very, very difficult by the 30th.
Well, if you could send us at least a listing of all the employees by building within the next week, would that be possible? We have something to look at, well, while we're,
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason I can't do that I can think of. I mean, I have it broken out
right,
pretty well for the budget process.
okay.
I
And
don't know that there's any personal information there I'm not supposed to share.
then maybe,
Always
Christine,
cautious of that.
maybe Christine can get us the information about high and low outlier class section sizes in the high school this fall. Those numbers, like to see those as well, so. And I'll just pass that along to everyone so we can look at it. So I don't think we're gonna have a meeting on the 30th. We'll just keep looking at the data we get. Sound good to you?
Mhm.
All right, sounds
I
good to
think you
me.
guys aren't back together. Well, you're here with the board on the
On the
5th.
5th, yes.
Yep. So we'll do that budget presentation. That's coming right along.
Okay, so we'll skip that, the 30th, and any public comment tonight? Don't all rush up at once. I don't see anyone here, so,
It's just us.
okay. So I think that's all we have for tonight. And if you all have questions that you have, about the data we just looked at, please let me know. And I'll forward it to the administration, so. Anything else? Excellent. Okay, thank you so much for coming. Meeting adjourned.